Have you ever thought of doing a vacation with a friend? Or like taking another family along with your family on vacation? This is something that I've done a few times over the years, and while it can be a lot of fun, there's a lot that you need to keep in mind if this is something that you're considering doing. And today I want to talk to you about some of those things and, chat about some of my past experiences to hopefully help you get a little bit of insight on how to make this work and avoid all the mistakes that I've made. Because yeah, there have been a few. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to an absolutely gorgeous day here in Florida. By the way, happy pumpkin spice season for those of you who are celebrating those festivities. I know there are a lot of people around right now talking about how excited they are to have taken the first sip of their pumpkin spice beverage of the season. And look, I don't have one. I've just got a diet root beer, and I know that's not very festive, but you know what else isn't festive? I know, this might be a little upsetting for some of you, but I was at the grocery store today and I saw a creamer that I couldn't resist, and it's gingerbread, and I know what you're thinking. You just skipped an entire season, Kat, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But the heart wants what it wants, Anyway, so today I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you about this topic that came across my feed. It's an article that I found on CNBC, and it's about traveling with friends, planning vacation with friends, or I'm going to extend this out to with other families. Because yeah, while there are a lot of you out there who are probably thinking about doing a trip with a friend or maybe even with multiple friends, I know there are a lot of you out there who would also consider doing a family trip with another family as well. And I'll tell you what, all of this applies in the same way. So the article is called 3 Red Flags That You and Your Friend Should Not Go on Vacation Together, and it explores 3 red flags that you should be on the lookout for if you're thinking about going down this road. And I figure since I've been there, since I've done that, I would share some of my experiences with you. Also, we could go over the article and talk about it, maybe bring some of these things to your attention. Maybe you might not be aware of these things. And of course, start a discussion, which, by the way, I am so looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say if you've ever done anything like this. So make sure that you share your insights in a comment down below. Before we jump into it though, I think that the idea of traveling with a friend, traveling with another family is very romanticized. We see it in movies. I actually just saw someone post something like this on social media where they actually came to Disney with another family. They met up when they were down here and it was so exciting for everyone. And I think that it can definitely be great. It can definitely be a fun experience, but just like with everything, there's a flip side, And I think that you are more likely to have a not so great experience if you're not prepared, just like, again, everything that we talk about. Preparedness, being ready for things, understanding how to work through situations no matter how they turn out is really the key to having a good vacation. And so I just thought that this would be a perfect topic to discuss, and we could share some stories along the way. Anyway, let's jump into number 1 on this list. So the first thing that they mention, and I'm so glad that they do, is that it's a red flag if your budgets and priorities are different. And look, it's so good that they led with this because of course vacations cost money, and I think that one of the things that's often easy to overlook, although everything on this list is easy to overlook, is what the expectation is of how much things are going to cost. Now look, for the most part, I feel like each and every one of us has our own idea of what things cost, whether we're talking about vacations or whatever else. And we might say like, oh, well, a vacation's gonna be pricey or it's gonna be expensive, but when we're not specific, we don't have a good understanding of what pricey or expensive means. And so 2 different people can end up on 2 very different pages, which is never a good thing. And it definitely leads to problems when you're on vacation. Not only financial problems because you think something's going to cost one thing and they think it's going to cost something else, but also when we talk about priorities and expectations of what you're going to do. In the article, they mention things like going to see a Broadway show or have a fancy dinner. Those are things that might be obvious choices in your idea of a vacation, but might not necessarily be obvious to someone who vacations a little bit differently and you're thinking about doing this vacation with. So I do think that it's really important to lay out what it is that you want to do, how you want to do it, what it's going to cost, use actual numbers, steer clear of hypotheticals, and make sure that everyone can get on the same page. And look, I know I'm going to repeat that a lot today because so much of this is about getting on the same page. And honestly, most of this article could be summed up as that, so bear with me as I continue to repeat myself. But clarity. Clarity, openness, and honesty is what's going to really make this a positive experience for you and the person that you're thinking about doing a vacation with. And honestly, if you're not comfortable having that type of open conversation, that might be the biggest red flag of all, but we'll get back to that here in a bit. Now for me, when it comes to a personal experience with this particular item, budget was always an interesting factor, specifically when I did a trip with a friend where we traveled cross country. This person was very much into eating out at restaurants, like sit down dining. I was on a very tight budget, so I was ready to just go to a grocery store and make sandwiches for the duration of the trip. So we had to work out what was going to work for both of us and balance the two. And for the most part, it worked out really nicely. They got what they wanted, I got what I wanted, and we didn't break the bank, though I spent more than I would have if I would have just been traveling on my own. So the next red flag that they mention is one of you doesn't like solo activities. Now this one is going to be really important, especially for those of you out there who are regularly solo travelers. You do a lot of stuff on your own, you're very independent, and you're going to be traveling with someone else. Maybe you still want to have a little bit of alone time now and again. Making sure that both of you are on the same page and you're comfortable with a little bit of alone time wherever it is that you're going to be vacationing to is really, really important, especially in this area, because if you're someone who is comfortable being by yourself and you're bringing along someone who isn't, that can put that person you're traveling with in a really uncomfortable position, and they might even feel unsafe, and no one wants anyone that they're traveling with to feel unsafe. But this is also really important if you're traveling with another family as well, because sometimes there can be that expectation that you guys are going to do absolutely everything together, but families also need a little bit of alone time, time to decompress, time to just think and organize your thoughts and just take a breath. I know it can seem like that would be totally unnecessary, especially if you're really good friends, not only those solo travelers, but also those families traveling together. Maybe you guys see each other all the time back home, but vacations are already high stress situations, and having a little bit of time alone, family time, separate time, can definitely help keep things good. Because yeah, too much of a good thing isn't a good thing. And sometimes we're not willing to accept that, like when we're planning because we're super excited, but when you're here and you got a lot going on, it can be a little overwhelming to be spending every second together. Now, this is one of those things that we definitely experienced when I did a trip years and years ago with multiple families. There was like 14 of us, it was crazy. And honestly, one of the points of stress at the very beginning was how exactly we were gonna do this, what the expectation was. Were we gonna spend all the time together, or was there gonna be time for this family to go and explore other parts of Florida and that family to go do their own thing? And while it was a little tense to have that conversation at the very beginning, once it all got ironed out, everyone kind of took that collective breath and realized that this was a time when we could all do something together, but it didn't mean that everyone had to be together. Everyone could go and have their own vacation as well. Now, the way that we pulled this off, for those of you who are wondering, and yes, we did it here at Walt Disney World, is that we had established times and activities. Those activities could include like dining reservations, when we would all meet up and do something together. And we had all agreed upon it, we were all excited about it and doing that thing together. And if we happened to meet up outside of those times, that was great. If we didn't, no pressure. So that's how we pulled that off. Of course, this is something we can get into a little bit more. If you're interested in that, let me know in a comment down below and we can go into more details about how we made that work. But what it really comes down to is communication. Again, getting on the same page and making sure everyone's good with the page that we happen to be on. Now, this last one is, it's a little bit redundant, I think, but also I'm going to mention it because we're going through this whole article, and that is that it's a red flag if you're not curious and excited about the same things. I think that this is one that really comes into play where two people or two families get really excited about doing something together, but they're more excited about that than the thing that they're actually doing. And when that thing that they're actually doing is something that only one of the two parties is interested in, it can feel like the other one is being dragged around, and no one wants to be in that position, especially if you're really not interested in that thing that the other person is interested in. And so yeah, just like some of the other things that we talked about, I think it's really important to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what's happening. Don't get too sucked into the idea of just traveling together that you don't talk about what your priorities are. But that kind of goes back to number one, right? So I'm not gonna really dig too much into that. And honestly, I've never really been in a position like that either, where I was super stoked about something and the person I was traveling with wasn't. Generally, I've ironed things out, or they've ironed things out together. We've ironed things out before the actual vacation or trip happens. But look, remember how a little while ago I mentioned that there was one thing that in my opinion I felt like was the ultimate red flag? I think that's what I said. I'm going to add it to the end of this list, and that's number 4 on the list, that it's a red flag if you don't feel comfortable having that open and honest communication with the person that you're thinking about traveling with. Look, so much of planning a vacation, planning any type of travel, is about being honest with yourself and the rest of the people that you're traveling with. I mean, we just talked about this the other day. Remember how I said you have to accept your family for who they are and accommodate for that when you're planning your vacation? That applies here as well, and honestly I think it fits in rather nicely. I think before you even begin the process of planning a vacation, maybe you're even just toying with the idea, you have to think about whether or not that person that you're thinking of traveling with is going to be able to receive the information that gets you guys on the same page without feelings being hurt or friendships being ruined. Which is sad to say, but it most definitely can happen. Even thinking back to some of the things that we mentioned earlier in this conversation, things like budget, that can be a really tough discussion to have no matter what side of the fence you're on. If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of extra money, you're on a tight budget and they're not, you don't want to feel bad about the amount of money you have available for this vacation, and you don't want to make them feel bad if they're the ones who don't have the amount of money to cover the things that you want to do. So it can be a really delicate situation to deal with. And the same can also be said if we're talking about things like feeling comfortable doing solo activities. That can have people feeling left out or like they've been abandoned when you're on vacation. Sometimes even the idea of having that conversation for some people can feel like, what, you want to invite me on vacation but you don't want to spend time with me? So I think you have to think about that before even committing to the idea. Is this the type of thing that you can do with that person that you're thinking about traveling with? How are they going to receive the information that's ultimately going to get you guys on the same page so that this can be a positive experience? And when you guys get home, good, bad, or otherwise, is the relationship going to withstand any bumps that you might encounter along the way? I know that can sound like a lot to think about, but honestly, it is a lot to think about. And depending on your travel plans, some of them might be a little bit more intense, more strenuous, some might be more expensive. Sometimes it might be on the total cheap, but that can be a lot as well. Take it from me, I've done a lot of traveling on a very tight budget, and that can put some strain on relationships. So it's just important to be aware of that so you can navigate it appropriately. But yeah, that's it for this article, and those are my thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like I mentioned, everyone has some different experience here. You may have done this before, you may not have done this, maybe it's turned out well, maybe not. Tell me all about it in a comment down below. But yeah, for now, I think I'm gonna make my way inside and gear up for the week ahead. I'm really excited. We've got some cool stuff coming, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of it. And have a fantastic week, wherever it is you are. All right, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.